What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Horrorheads podcast. I am Rich Mallery, and I'm here with my co-host, Jerry Lourenco.
You're feeling it. What's up?
We are also here. We're excited that we have a special guest today, my good friend, Anthony Rainville, actor-musician.
Hey, what's going on?
All right, cool. All right, so this is episode 5. It is the first time we have had a guest on, so this could be a complete shit show. It could be a lot of fun. We will see. We are just going to roll with it, and we're going to hang. Before we kind of get to know Anthony a little bit, later on, we are going to talk about some classics. Today, we're going to talk about Evil Dead. We're going to talk about Hellraiser. We're going to talk about The Thing. But before we get into all that fun stuff, the most important part of this show, to me anyway, and the reason why I'm doing it is I want to start drinking. So what does everybody got tonight? Jerry, what do you got?
Ooh-wee. All right. So in honor of The Thing, I was watching it the other night. And our man right there, Mac, he was drinking something the entire movie. Does anyone remember what it is?
I do, because I wrote it down.
I got some J&B. I'm about to pour it on the rocks.
Very nice. Anthony, what do you got for us tonight?
So I'm not a big liquor or hard alcohol person, so I'm drinking a Stella. That's going to be my drink for the night.
Okay, sounds good. And I am trying something new. Well, actually, I'm not trying it for the first time because you can see it's half empty. It is called Walking Stick. It is a single barrel Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. It is 90 proof. And I don't remember if I enjoyed it the other night because I ended up drinking a lot of it, but we'll find out. So I'm about to pour this motherfucker and see what happens. I'm going to do a heavy pour so I don't have to re-pour.
Nice. I'm just hoping that Anthony signed all the contracts here because whatever happens after this moment, it's not on us.
Yeah, and I just found out Anthony doesn't have health insurance anymore, so I'm not paying his hospital.
I missed that. So quick plug here: the Horrorheads are not responsible for anyone or anything that happens during the recording of the Horrorheads podcast episode. Thank you.
All right, we got that disclaimer out. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Oh.
So I haven't drank beer in a long time. I used to be a big beer drinker. I would mostly drink IPAs, but now when I drink beer, I get really full, and I'm tired after one. And for some reason, I could probably have 4 or 5 bourbons, and I won't make sense, but I'm still upright. For me, beer just kind of messes me up. So tell me a little bit about this Stella you're drinking, because I've drank it before, but I don't really remember. Is it a lager?
I believe it's a lager. It's a German beer. And it's probably one of my favorite beers. My favorites being either like a Peroni or a Birra Moretti, which is also an Italian beer. So if I'm taking one of those, or I'm taking a Stella.
You said Birra Moretti?
Birra Moretti is my other favorite. That's probably my all-time fave. Either their regular Birra Moretti or their Birra Moretti La Rosa. Both are fantastic and both Italian beers. So that's my all-time fave for sure.
Okay, hopefully if we get an endorsement, we'll bring you back on to talk about it. So I thought this Walking Stick would be more of a craft bourbon, but it doesn't taste that way to me at all. It's very smooth. I'm getting the caramel that Jerry seems to get in every bourbon that he drinks. But yeah, no, I'm enjoying it. It's got that little burn from the 90 proof. I'm gonna have some fun tonight. How about you, Jerry? How's the J&B? I know how the J&B is, but how's it hitting you tonight?
It's oaky and smoky, and it tastes like something that you would drink if you were like stuck at some sort of wintry outpost and there was nothing else to drink and you just want to get drunk. So that's my take on it. It's a fairly low proof. I think it's about 80 proof, but literally tastes like I'm drinking a barrel. So that's the taste I'm getting. No caramel in this one.
So 80 proof, kind of like a breakfast bourbon, then, is what you're thinking. Cool. So a couple of things going on right now. So I don't know if anyone saw the Maxine trailer that dropped the other day. Did any of you catch it yet? I have my thoughts on it. Anthony, how do you feel about it? Like, are you excited? Do you care?
I'm excited. You know what? I only watched it on like on an Instagram clip, so I haven't I haven't rewatched it like in a bigger screen yet. It looked great from what I saw. I really loved Pearl, and X was the other one.
Yep.
Yeah, I really enjoyed those. So I feel like I'll be stoked to see it, and I don't know that I'm super hyped on it yet, but I'm sure I will absolutely go see it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to think of it because it doesn't look like X. It doesn't look like Pearl. I'm not even sure it's a horror movie. it's something completely different, which I support. So I don't really know what to think. I think I just need to wait till we get a little closer. I know I'm going to see it. I don't know if I need to go to the theater to see it, but again, Ty West continues to do things that are completely different, and I respect that. Jerry, what do you think?
I mean, it's the '80s. I'm picturing a lot of debauchery, so they did a lot with X. I'm actually kind of picturing them going over the top with this one. It's like LA in the '80s. Why not? So if anything, I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it's again, it's interesting how it's not what I expected to see. I don't know what I expected, but it's not it's a different film than what I thought it would be, but that could be a really good thing. And I am, big serial killer fan, and Richard Ramirez is a very, very popular one, and I'm interested. I'll definitely watch it. Speaking of new movies, so I did actually go to the theater to see a movie recently, which is something I rarely ever do. But I went to go see Late Night with the Devil. Anthony, have you checked that out yet?
I just saw it in theaters the other last week. Yeah.
So I don't want to spoil the movie at all, but I will give like my thoughts on it. And then Anthony would love to hear your thoughts. So I loved seeing it in the theater because the whole movie is basically you're watching this talk show unfold throughout the course of the night. And I really felt being in the theater, the way they did it, you were in the movie, like you were there. Like I felt like I was part of the audience watching this whole thing unfold. And that was really a cool effect that I don't think I've seen before. The movie, I think the story was really good. It kept me interested. I was really in it all the way. I think there were two big things I didn't like about the movie. One is certain parts of it will shift to black and white. And to me, the movie, like it's in real time. So it's basically the course of this night from the start of the show to the end of the show. And when it went to black and white, it took me out of it. Like I didn't feel like I was part of the audience anymore. And it felt like a different movie. And I don't know why they did that. The other thing I didn't like was I didn't like the special effects in it at all. And I'm sure it was a budgetary reason versus an artistic thing, but it didn't feel like the same movie. I felt like if you're doing something that takes place in the late 70s, which this does, you want to use more practical, not a ton of digital effects. I just thought it really, really bad. And I was super into the movie right up until the last 10 minutes, and then it completely just lost me, and I was disappointed. I don't know, Anthony, what did you think of it?
I definitely agree with you. I was really stoked on it. I was really excited to see it, and because I love that genre, that kind of possession style movie, and I think they did a really good job of like building. It takes a minute to get going, and I think they did a really good job of building the dread up over the course of the movie, and then at like the very last kind of 10 minutes, it kind of lost me. Or I wasn't as stoked on how, especially kind of the effects wise, how they went with it. I also would have preferred something a little bit more practical and more. I guess I'm comparing it to like The Exorcist or something, which felt like it had that really same terrifying tone, and both thematically and also effects wise throughout. It really kept it as grounded as possible. And this one just kind of went in a different direction that I wouldn't have done, I guess, if I was making it. But that said, I still enjoyed it otherwise. And I think it does a really good job of kind of escalating the dread throughout the whole movie, which I dug.
Yeah, I think I just got disappointed because, again, it was so well done at points where you did feel like you were a part of this, like you were in the crowd watching this thing. And then just to take us out of that, and now I'm like, oh, I'm watching a movie now. I don't know. I feel like they blew some opportunities there, but again, it could have been a budget thing. I don't, you never really know how these things go. And it's coming on Shudder in like a week or two, right?
19th. Yeah, that's where I'm going to check it out. I have a night planned for it. I hope I'm not disappointed, but I'm starting to feel like I'm going to be.
Yeah, well, watching it for free is different. So anyway, so I said I'd introduce Anthony. So how I know Anthony is he auditioned for one of my films, and I forget which one. Was it Majoid or Borderline? Do you remember?
Majoid.
Majoid. Okay, so he auditioned for the lead, and I wish I would have cast him in the lead because he would have done a better job than the person I did cast. But
Yo, you didn't cast this guy, dude?
No, I did. So
I'm about to hang up on your ass.
Well, he wouldn't be on the podcast if I didn't cast him. But no, so I'd given the lead to somebody else based on like a recommendation, and I think I even had the lead already cast before I even saw Anthony's read. But either way, there was a smaller role in the movie, and it's a very small role, but it was a really difficult one to cast. And the role is this guy Jonathan, who you really just see in snippets. And why it was hard to cast is because this character is very sadistic and just brutal and really tortures this woman. and everybody I had read really couldn't go to that dark place to really give me that real performance. And it's funny when we met for him to read, I even said, okay, we're probably going to do this 3 times because I'm going to need you to like talk you through to get you in the right zone. And on the first read, he like nailed it, and I was like, wow, I'm terrified of what you're doing there. And that was awesome. And luckily, he took the role, and we didn't really get to talk at all because this movie was shot in like a limited amount of time. Like things were happening really fast. He kind of just came in and out, so we didn't really get to interact. He came, was professional, did this role, and left. And then he wasn't able to go to the premiere for Maydroid, which was a bummer. But he did come to a premiere of one of my other movies, Borderline, which I thought was super cool. I was like, wow, like you're not even in this, and you're coming to support. I respected that. But what I really liked was you had like a horror T-shirt on. I think it was a Hellraiser shirt or something like that. And I was like, oh my God, like I have to talk to this person. He's actually a horror fan. And like I was super stoked. So we talked a little bit. And then when I was casting my next movie, We Are Wolves, I only had one male role. It's mostly females in that movie. And it's a small role again. And I immediately thought I wanted Anthony to come be a part of it, mostly because I just wanted to kind of talk to him a little more and kind of get to know him. And he took the role. And I was super, super stoked and super excited to get to work with him a second time. So I'm going to ask you a couple of quick questions or whatever. So again, the role in Maydroid is very different than the role in We Were Wolves. And in Maydroid, I already said you played the sadistic, abusive person. How did you kind of get into character for this? Were there different movies you watched to kind of influence kind of how you acted? Because your performance is chilling. Like even though it's short clips, it's memorable.
Thank you. Thanks for casting me. I think that was one of those really difficult things for me because I hadn't done anything like that before. And I really enjoy as an actor taking swings at something that I haven't done before. And I was surprised that was something that you felt that I was working for you as a role. And but I really wanted to give it a shot. And like, you always want to try things that you haven't done before. So definitely a lot of Jack Nicholson in The Shining, like, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of, Clockwork Orange. I think there's a lot of that. And I think going forward, you're always trying to balance, taking your influences, but also doing your own thing. And I think that's like an ongoing kind of like trying to get better at and evolving as an actor. But I always know what I'm inspired by. And I think it's always just kind of figuring out how to like make it your own going forward each time that you do it, and try to find your own self in it every time you take on a role, especially a role like that.
And how difficult is it to really go to that dark place? Because again, like I said, you're you're beating the hell out of and torturing this innocent maid droid character. And, we're human beings, right? So how do you kind of separate the reality of it from the character of it in a way that's really effective?
That's a good question. I think that I'm not even sure that I have a good answer to that. I think, it was such a quick shoot, and you're just trying to like get the technicalities part of it right. So you're hitting your marks and you're doing all these things and you're delivering the lines. I think that you're just trying to be in that. This probably sounds cliche as an actor, but you're just trying to be in that moment and be in that scene as best you can, and find as much of yourself in what's happening in that character as you can, and you're not judging it. You're just kind of like really just trying to be in that moment and be in that space and be in that position. I think that's kind of a vague answer, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have a great answer for you. There isn't a lot of separation. You have to like turn it on and turn it off when the camera's rolling.
No, it makes sense. And, a lot of your dialogue was ad-libbed in that movie. I gave you some direction and something to say, and a lot of it was just you just getting into that character. And I guess why I asked that question was because, it had to be just in a way just off-putting. It's literally you come into the room, and Faith West, who played the Maydroid, is basically tied to a cross. I had her like chained up, and it's like, okay, now I gotta go abuse you. I haven't met you yet. We haven't really talked, but now I gotta play this really intense scene with you without kind of really having time to practice it. There just wasn't time for rehearsals on that. So I give you credit to do it and be very professional. And yeah, I mean, I was blown away. I wish, again, there was more. We could have done more scenes, right? Because it was a lot of fun working with you. And then in We Are Wolves, you played a much different role. And in this one, you're the one that gets tortured by the woman. And I had the pleasure of chaining you down to a table, which was interesting. How'd you feel about that experience shooting that film? You were very in it briefly, right, but memorable, and it was the same kind of thing where you were kind of in and out. But yeah, tell me about your experience on that set.
It was good. I will say, in both films, everybody was great. All the other actors were fantastic. So Faith was great. It makes it. It's always so much easier when everyone else is like doing a great job and giving you a lot to work with, and you hopefully are giving them something to work with. But that was one of like a couple days that were really. I was just having I was coming straight from something else, and I was like, all right, let's go. And I knew what was happening. I tried to make sure I knew what was happening in the scene and where I was reacting to things, and then you just kind of let it all go and let the scene happen, and hopefully and hopefully it's convincing when it goes to tape. But like, it was definitely an interesting experience, and it was fun, and it wasn't as it was challenging, but not as challenging as the scene I had to do with Faith, where I had to really kind of come into a darker space, I guess, mentally.
And I think the question that everybody's really wondering, I'm sure all of our listeners are wondering, is how incredible of a director am I? That's really what I want to know.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the biggest thing is Rich being such a great director. I thought that went without saying, but it absolutely bears repeating how great a director is and how easy it is to work with and how professional. So that also makes it a lot easier.
And just a genius in general, right? Cool. So like, what else are you like, do you have anything else coming up? Any films or anything like that? Or are you kind of looking for the right role?
I don't have anything booked right this second, but I did get to do a few more films last year that are coming out this year. So I did another horror movie. That one is called Open Pages, and it was also a darker role, and I was also surprised that I was cast in it. That what I did was working for him. And I haven't seen it yet, but it did got a couple awards at a film festival that I did see. So I'm waiting to see that, and that's a short film. And then I did another short called Crybaby, where I was playing a kind of shitty piece of shit producer or of a film, or director of a film that's in the casting process, and is kind of just not treating the actress that comes in the best. And there's like now that I had a similar role in another project as well that I'm kind of blanking on, and I just got to do another short as well, where playing a dad picking up their daughter who's was stranded. And yeah, there's a few different things I've gotten to do pretty recently that I've been excited about. So I can't wait to see them when they come out.
Awesome. You'll have to let us know when they're out. So the other thing that I didn't know upon meeting you is Anthony's also a musician. So tell us a little bit about that. I believe your band is Jaws of You, right?
Yeah, Jaws of You. Yeah, I've been playing in bands since I was really young, and gotten to do some touring, and played with a lot of bands that I've loved growing up. Jaws of You is a solo project that I've been doing in Los Angeles, and I'm currently just kind of finishing up another EP right now that I'm hoping to have out this year, and hoping to start performing again. I haven't performed since the end of the beginning of the pandemic, so end of 2019. It's like the longest stretch of my life that I have gone.
So what bands did you mentioned you toured with some bands that you love? Like, what were some of those bands?
So I got to tour with this band from Maryland that I was a huge fan of, called You, Me, and Everyone We Know. And they're kind of like they're like a indie pop punk emo band, and we got to do a couple tours with them over in a few different bands. I got to tour with this band called We Are the In Crowd, that I was a big fan of, and a few shows with a lot of bands growing up, like Cartel and 4 Year Strong and The Maine, just all bands that I loved. And it's truly incredible to get to share the stage with some of your idols, and it's all things that you hope that you get to do as an artist and a musician. And so when it happens, it's really fucking cool.
So how would you describe, for people that haven't heard Jaws of You, how would you describe that? What are some of the influences? What could people expect to kind of hear?
Yeah, sure. Definitely on the indie alternative pop, emo, pop punk, a lot of that stuff that I kind of have always loved. And if you like bands like the 1975 or Jimmy Eat World, that's a good, I guess, good comparison.
And I think you told me the name kind of was, I don't know how you say it, loosely inspired by Jawbreaker, right?
Yeah. I loved. I really. It was the hard. It's picking a band name. I think has been harder than doing anything else in a band. To be honest with you, it took like a year or something. It took a really long time, like while I was writing music, to like try to figure out what to call it. That I really like those band names like Jawbreaker from the '90s, and even like the idea, or even like the movie Jaws. It just like had a. I was such a again as like a horror fan. I think that that was definitely an inspiration to it.
Cool. Well, so before we get into some movies, so how can people find you? How do they hear your music? How do they book you? Where do we find you?
I'm at Jaws of You on pretty much every platform, TikTok, Instagram, and you can find me listen on Spotify, any streaming service, Spotify, Apple Music, Jaws of You.
All right. Well, once you finish listening to this podcast, you're already on one of those platforms. So look up Jaws of You. All right. So we're going to talk about some movies now. We're going to get into the shit. Anthony and others who may not have listened to us before, I'm sure you've all listened to every episode we've ever done. But for those of you who haven't, there is a drinking game that
Twice.
there is a drinking game that we play, and how it works. And I'll explain how it works when it's just Jerry and myself, and then I will explain how it's going to work tonight. So after we discuss each movie in depth, we each give it a rating, a Bloody Knives rating, which goes 0 to 5. And the number of bloody knives that I give a movie, that's the number of seconds Jerry needs to drink. And the number of bloody knives he provides is the number of seconds I need to drink. So now there are three people, so things get a little tricky. So Anthony, I'm going to ask you right now, which one of us are you going to drink with? You need to pick one. And there's one right choice and one probably not so right choice. And I'll explain why after.
Okay, I mean, I'll drink with you, Rich.
Okay, I think that was the right choice. And the reason why is I think I like these movies a little better than Jerry does. So I think if you picked him, he'd be in trouble. Now, what Jerry doesn't know, what we have not
Oh
discussed,
no! What?
and you might want
Oh,
to,
here we go.
you might want to call in sick to work right now, because how this is going to work tonight is not only do you have to drink the number of seconds that I provide, but we each need to drink the number of seconds that Anthony provides.
All right. I feel like I'm being set up here because I love having Anthony as a guest here because I could just kind of chill in the back and just drink. But that whole time, I'm just drinking. So I think you guys are going to get like a slight advantage over me because I'm going to go through quite a bit here. But all right, I'm in. All right. Well, I got something for you then that
shit.
you don't know, but I got a John Carpenter challenge. So there you
Okay.
go.
All right.
That you both are going to have to play. So yeah, so look forward to that.
Are we gonna do that now, or are we gonna do that when we do the thing?
I think I don't know what your thought was of the order, but yeah, when we do the thing, we'll do the John Carpenter quick challenge.
Okay, that works for me. So the one thing I will say is Anthony did pick these movies, so I think we're fucked. I think he's gonna give them high ratings, and I think we're gonna be hammered by the end of this. But all right, we're gonna start with Evil Dead, and the reason why we're gonna start with that is one out of the three, it's the first one I watched, and two, I think I have the most notes on this one. So, Jerry, why don't you give us the plot of Evil Dead?
Sure. Okay. So, five friends are going on vacation at some sort of rundown cabin in the woods. It's really not clear at all why they chose this particular cabin. It seems really horrible, and it looks like they're set up for like the worst vacation ever. The cabin is gross and disgusting. It's dirty, and I don't know why anyone would want to stay there. But anyway, the first night they're kind of like playing around. They get a little drunk, and they're probably bored sitting in this cabin that really looks like it has nothing to do there. A cellar door pops open, and instead of getting freaked out, they decide to go explore it. And they find some creepy stuff in the basement, which sets up some paranormal events that doesn't really work out in their favor.
You know, it's funny, and this was a favorite movie of mine. I used to watch this movie all the time, but I haven't watched it in a long time. And I think the reason is I really like the remake, and I watched that a lot. And I also like Evil Dead Rise a lot. So I've been watching those, and I kind of felt like I didn't like this movie anymore. I felt like I aged out of it, or it just didn't hold up. One thing that I forgot is that they're fucked before they even get to the basement and read from the book and play the tape. Like, when they're driving, the demons kind of fuck with them, which I've always thought it was they get to the cabin, it's weird. They go into the basement, they find this tape, they play it, or they read the words, and then bad shit happens. But they were fucked even just driving up. So I just totally forgot about that.
No, absolutely. And I'll echo the being a huge fan of the remake and Evil Dead Rise as well. I was really stoked. I'm such a fan of this entire franchise. So
yeah, and I even love when they get like I like the Ash versus Evil Dead TV series. I think it's fun. It's really fun. And I think what a lot of people forget or don't know is the original Evil Dead is not fun really. It's pretty serious, it's pretty dark. It wasn't until Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness where it started getting really comical, but the original movies it's fucked up. And there's a lot of fucked up shit that happens. I mean, it was banned in a lot of places because of several things, most of which being the female getting raped by the tree in the forest, which is super intense. And I was reading, just trying to do some research on this movie, and that wasn't in the original script, and they shot it where she was just kind of attacked by the trees and tied up. And when the producer was watching the dailies, he just felt this wasn't enough. I needed something more intense, and that's when they came up with the idea, which I think they later regretted because they felt it might have went a little too far. But I thought that was an interesting little fact.
interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that.
It was actually a crazy shoot too. Apparently, a lot of the people stayed in this cabin, like a lot of the crew stayed in this cabin, and it was freezing. And apparently, people weren't really showering, and it was just a mess. And it ended up being so cold that they started burning furniture to keep warm. Bruce Campbell, who plays Ash, loses teeth. He got hit by a camera while they were doing something and knocked out a bunch of his teeth.
I did remember reading about the shoot, and it was pretty gnarly.
Sounds like hell. And one thing I'm watching the movie, and for me, it starts off right away. Like it's pretty intense. It's, you get right into the thick of things. It doesn't really let up. And then there's probably like 20 minutes or so where it's just Bruce Campbell, like kind of going through some stuff. And I always kind of get a little bored during this time. And I just didn't understand why they did that. And I was reading today that apparently like they wrapped the movie, ran out of money. And because Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi were friends, like they just went back on their own and just shot a bunch of stuff to fill in the movie. And it was really just out of necessity why you have these long stretches where it's just him. I thought that was interesting. What I think is also interesting too is, so Sam Raimi, the director, Bruce Campbell and Sam's brother, I believe his name is Ted, used to like make films together, like just shorts, and just they used to fuck around. And why Bruce Campbell ended up being like the actor, not them, is because out of the three, he was the hot one, apparently. And it's funny when you watch this, and I again, you gotta take things through a lens. Okay, this is 1981. But he was hot. Like he's got this unibrow.
Got a bowl haircut.
Yeah, I wrote down his haircut looks like a dead animal on his head. I just think that's so funny that he was the hot, like he was the guy that would get the chicks, and that's why they put him in the movie.
That's hysterical. Yeah, I definitely have like a lot of thoughts about this film, and I think the folklore around the film is kind of like really what built it up a lot with their filming and all the things that happened. I mean, I heard there were like strange hunters that would just show up onto the property while they're filming. So there's a lot of like weird things that they would have to go through. And I'm going to be honest with you. When I rewatched this, I watched it on DVD, and you guys aren't going to believe this, but the fucking DVD was sealed. I never watched this on my own, and I never watched it. So what I think has happened as over the years, I really just kind of like either meshed or confused this with Evil Dead 2, which is, to me, I always thought was the same movie, but it's very, very, very different. And now that I watch this, I kind of feel dumb. I'm going to be honest with you. I missed a lot by not watching this instead of Evil Dead 2 all these years.
So you've been lying all these years saying that you hated this movie.
Yeah. It was. I wouldn't say lying. I would say confused.
I'm kidding. I'm fucking with you. No, that happens to me where, again, I think I saw something and I was just thinking it was something else, and I have this opinion on it, and then I realized, or I didn't see the whole thing. I just saw like bits and pieces of it, and like somehow my brain filled in that I saw the movie, and then I'm like, actually, like I just know this one scene because I just saw it once or people talk about it. So anyway, so seeing Evil Dead now for the first time, like I know myself watching it again, there's a nostalgia factor. I'm sure Anthony, you felt the same way where you kind of grew up with this movie. How does it hold up as someone who's never seen it before. Now I know you're familiar with the other Evil Dead stuff, but like seeing it for the first time in 2024, like what do you think? What's the truth? Give me the tea.
It was so much more raw than probably what I remembered. I'd probably seen it before, but it wasn't something I watched all the time when I did watch Evil Dead 2 all the time. So it felt a lot more raw. It felt a lot more low budget. But you said something before, and I definitely have a note about this. Once Cheryl goes out there into the woods and she's attacked, all hell breaks loose, and the movie really does not let up from that point. It is like nonstop. You actually feel for like what's going on with the characters in this film. Like I was getting tired. I'm like, oh my god, are they still fighting these demons? And it's like you knock it down, it just keeps coming back and coming back, and it's like this is going to get ridiculous, but it exhausts you. And I think as a viewer, you feel a bit exhausted, and you kind of go through what the characters are going through. And I don't ever remember that feeling that way, kind of like watching Evil Dead 2. I always felt like I was just kind of annoyed, and like the demon's really noisy. And after a while, I'd be like, all right, just let's move on. But this, I had a completely different feeling. It was quite graphic and pretty sick. So I'm going to be honest with you. I felt like I saw something renewed for the first time. How about that? And I was thoroughly impressed, and I liked it. I'm going to be honest with you. I thought a lot of the things that I'm mistaken for was a different movie, so it was good.
Yeah, I think too, again, like, it's low budget for sure. Although I mean I think they spent a few $100,000 on it, but low budget, right? Considering and
350.
350, right? Which to me, I wish I had 350 to make a movie, but it's low.
I mean, but
It's
that's low.
Oh,
Yeah.
super low. Yeah, I mean for what they were trying to do. And I think again, taking into context, this was 1981. And I feel like it's a very original concept. Like we've seen this movie 100 times since then, but I'm sure it's not, but it might be it's the first cabin in the woods movie that I could think of, other than like a slasher movie where like something else is going on, which I thought was a really cool concept that again we've seen done to death at this point. But in 1981, that was like a fresh new idea. I think the makeup is disgusting. The demons look gross, and I think you watch it now on like my big TV. You can kind of see like where it falls apart a little bit, and it's not like the best. But if you watched it in 1981 with all the grain, like it looked disgusting and like terrifying actually.
And I'm not a director or anything like that, but I have to say all the different camera tricks and like the extreme kind of face close-ups on like Ash and stuff like that to like capture like his feelings and stuff like that. It was just like you could see like that agony. And I don't kind of like before 81, I really don't remember anyone doing that before, especially with like the camera kind of chasing you and things like that. Like you knew like the evil was coming because you saw the camera kind of running. And I mean, without a drone, how did they do that? Like, it's really interesting. And, I feel like they kind of like figured a lot of like low budget ways to have like these big effects. And I even liked, and it did get a little crazy at points, but the smoke machines, I thought that, sometimes it was a little overdid, but it did create an atmosphere and it did kind of make it spooky. And again, like looking at it on a giant like 4K TV, it looked probably a little different. If I was watching it on my 19-inch Sony in 1981, it probably would look like insane. So I really liked what they were doing as far as like, with the actual like film and the direction there.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say like I find myself watching it and going, how did he do that? You know what I mean? Like I'm always like looking for that. What was the camera trick here? And I also find it funny I saw a bunch of Sam Raimi movies later movies that he did way before I saw Evil Dead. I don't think I saw Evil Dead until like maybe like 6 years ago or something. So this was like a movie that I think I'd seen like bits and pieces of Evil Dead 2, maybe an Army of Darkness when I was growing up as a kid. But I remember, you can go watch like Spider-Man and you can watch like, he just directed Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and you can see the same camera stuff that like is very associated with Raimi, those extreme close-ups. And I always find that funny that it's just such a signature thing that you can see where one of the first movies that he ever kind of did that stuff in and carried it to like these Marvel superhero blockbusters. And I always find that funny.
Yeah, no, totally. And the technique you're talking about is they couldn't really afford, or they didn't have dollies. So what they did was they had a 2x4 and they put the camera in the middle, and Sam Raimi held up one side and Bruce Campbell actually held the other, and they just ran through the woods, which it was difficult because they're tripping over shit, like it's the swamp kind of. So like actually that's how they did a lot of those shots, which is crazy, and that's why it's like so all over the place, but it's so iconic. And I feel like even people that have imitated that have not done it in the same way. And it's completely unique. And it's just to think of that. So what a like it sounds easy, like, oh yeah, just put the camera on a thing, but like who would have thought of that? It's just a great idea.
I mean, it didn't feel like a shaky cam or anything like that. It felt like they had something, some sort of contraption. So that, I mean, that was awesome. I thought, I mean, we were talking about, Ty West before, and a little bit of a nod that probably Ty West stole from this was during like that axe dismemberment scene, and really there was blood flying everywhere, and even the camera goes red. And we saw that recently. I know we talked about that in X recently, but I'm like, wow, is it totally didn't realize that. I'm like, is that where it came from? Is that where they got the idea? Just drench the camera in blood and just the whole scene turns red. I thought that was so awesome.
Yeah, you always hate to say that this is like the first time this thing happened because there's been hundreds of movies. But in 1981, like maybe that never happened before, and that was a completely. And if it did happen before, like maybe Sam Raimi never saw that movie, but yeah, completely like new idea that again we see over and over again in other movies. That this was like the first time that you probably saw something like that. Another thing I thought was really funny. So there's a scene. I think it's a scene where they're listening to the tape recording that basically supercharges everything and gets the demons kind of all excited with where they read the incantation, and they're smoking weed. And apparently the first time they did it they were actually smoking weed, but the actors got so high that the takes were unusable, so they had to like go back and do it where they were like not even either not smoking weed or it was like wasn't really weed. But I thought that was really funny. That's something I would do in a movie. I usually unfortunately when I have people smoking weed in my movies, like it's cheaper to have them smoke real weed than to have to get something fake. So I have to deal with people getting high sometimes.
Just give them that ragweed.
Yeah, it's
Funny.
just a sick movie. I mean, it has that, blood bath where the pipe opens up and the blood just pours all over Ash. That like anytime I see shit like that, I go crazy.
Man, I was hoping that was blood and not like sewage because I didn't know which one was worse at that time. Because when he's like staring at it, I'm like, oh man, I'm like, what is going to fall out of this pipe? I'm like, what is worse? Do I want to see mud, sewage, or blood? They want blood. It wasn't too bad.
And that's not the only time he gets covered in blood. There's that other scene where his girlfriend, I guess, the head comes off and this blood just is pouring out of her decapitated head all over his face. Just disgusting. He gets drenched.
Oh yeah, I remember him talking about in the one of the last days of shooting after they wrapped, he was like just like in the back of a pickup truck driving into town, and he's just covered still in all this blood, and people are looking at him like, what the hell? And he was saying that that was one of those shirts was just like he had to put back on, and it was just like solid because the blood had just completely dried, and they had to like break it off of him.
Like that's a lot of blood, but it actually makes your shirt turn solid. Like that's crazy.
I mean, they probably didn't even have running water there during the set, so you just kind of go with what you want. That's crazy, and I think that's what's coming up a lot in this movie is the actual kind of like stories around like the filming and the creation of this movie, because like they really kind of sunk, everything they had. Like they're willing to risk everything to create this film. They had a vision, and they just went with it. I thought I read that Sam Raimi did a short to kind of propose this or shop it around or something like that. It was called like Within the Woods. I think he did. So I don't know much about that. I never saw it. Has anyone here ever seen that before?
I actually tried watching it. I found it on YouTube.
I thought it was lost. Yeah.
I believe there's like there's some version of it on YouTube or some website I was able to, but I feel like I only got like 5 or 10 minutes in. Like it seems either the quality of it in the transfer or just how it was shot initially. It's like to me it was unwatchable. It was like you're looking at it going like, there's no way this person can make a movie. You know what I mean? Like with the way this looks and the way this is shot. And to like even see a few minutes of that and then watch Evil Dead, it's like it's such a night and day difference. It's really incredible.
I believe it because I heard Good.
No, I was gonna say, speaking of putting everything into it, it's like this was one of those movies where Sam like maxed out credit cards to pay for it. I think Bruce Campbell put his house for mortgage or something like that to pay to finish the movie. So yeah, they definitely like risked a lot just to make this movie, which became a cult classic. And I think it was difficult to release. I don't think it came out for a few years after they made it. Sorry, what were you gonna say, Jerry?
No, I was just gonna say, I heard they used to just run around and shoot a lot in high eight. So what you saw might have been exactly what they filmed. So I don't know what the quality was. I don't know if they're doing any sort of mastering techniques or anything like that. So it's probably pretty bad. But yeah, I wonder if they ever like turned a profit. I wonder if like they're like, yeah, it was worth it. I wonder how long it took to actually be like, this was a successful film. I'm thinking 15 years later, I'm thinking.
So actually, it was, to the best of my knowledge, and I could be wrong, but I feel like once because once they shopped that within the woods around, they were able to get some funding for it, and they started screening it. And one of the things that really pushed it over the edge and really kind of got it out to more theaters and got people talking about it was this recommendation from Stephen King. He was like, this is one of the most terrifying films I've seen in years. And he was like, obviously he was our well-known author at that time. And they took that quote and they just slapped it on they plastered it everywhere with regards to promoting the film. And that got, that helped in a big way to get people talking about it and going to see the movie. So I feel like it got the ball rolling pretty quickly, to the best of my knowledge.
Especially in 1981. I know Stephen King's still a big name, but then that was really kind of, I wouldn't say the height of Stephen King, but that was right when he was really blowing up. Like I think Carrie had just come out like right before that and some other stuff. So yeah, that's a huge endorsement right there. So that's interesting.
So Rich,
yeah.
Anthony said he saw this really for like the first time about 6 years ago. And I feel like I saw it for the first time maybe last week. Well, when was the first time you watched this film?
So I had seen Evil Dead 2 first, and I had seen that probably when I was like 11 or 12 years old. I remember it's funny, like my sister was having a sleepover at my house, my little sister, and I went to spend the night with who's now my stepdad, who's my mom's boyfriend at the time, and he rented 3 movies for us to watch. One was Sleepaway Camp 2, one was Evil Dead 2, and I forget what the third one was, but this was, again, I was like 11, maybe 10. Like I was really young when I saw that.
I love this man.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then I tracked down the first Evil Dead pretty much shortly after that, and was a huge fan. I was like, I'd seen horror movies before. Like I had watched Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and a bunch of stuff, but I'd never seen something like Sleepaway Camp 2 or like this. And it just blew my mind. And after I saw Evil Dead 2, I was like, that was at the time, 10-year-old me, 11-year-old, I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever fucking saw. I got to see the first one. And it took a while to track it down. I couldn't find it at a video store for some reason, but I ended up finding it. So yeah, I watched it really young. I actually saw it in a theater in my early 20s. I was in London actually for various reasons. And I had nothing to do one day and it was playing at a theater, like they had a print of it or something. And I thought it was so cool to see that in the theater. And that was actually the first time I saw it uncut. The version I had rented didn't have the tree rate scene. So I didn't see that until I was a little older. And I'd always heard people talking about it, and I'm like, what? No, that doesn't happen. And then I was like, oh, okay, that does happen.
I definitely have a story like that not with this movie, but so I'm wearing a Pet Sematary shirt right now. But when I was probably like 14 or 15, definitely early teens, I was at a church like movie night with a bunch of people I went to school with that were in the same like church, and they I don't think they like knew what they were renting, but they put on Pet Sematary and they just left. We were like in this little church basement with a TV set up, and they put on Pet Sematary and just left the room. And we watched that entire movie as like early teenagers, and that was the first time I'd seen it all the way through, and it was so gnarly, and I was like, this is awesome.
That's funny.
So, yeah.
So what I'm getting from this is a lot of parents are fucked up. I mean,
we're just not paying attention.
Pet Cemetery, Sleepaway Camp. What the hell's going on here? Seriously.
I know. I luckily, or I don't know if luckily, but I grew up with parents who understood that I could watch horror movies and were okay with me doing that. And again, I turned out
Yeah, yeah,
okay. I don't
yeah.
know.
Look how you turned out.
Not good. Yeah, I'm a fucking mess. But like, I've seen a lot of movies. Yeah, what was I gonna say? So another thing I thought was interesting about Evil Dead, it's Ash is the final boy. We always see final girls. This is like one of the I can't think of I'm sure there's other movies, but I can't think of another movie that has a final boy in it. And I thought that was an interesting take. And again, I'm sure they did it out of necessity. It was, Bruce and Sam just like, all right, let's do this. Let's make a movie. And they probably couldn't pay a female actress to go through all that he went through. But I mean, can you think of another movie that was similar to that?
Not off the top.
No, not in the 80s. I mean, I don't know, Sam Loomis count? I mean,
Sam
I don't
Loomis.
know. I mean, does he count? I mean,
No,
don't
because he's
know.
not the only
I
one.
don't.
It's usually the
He's
only
not
one
the only
person against the
one.
killer. Yeah.
So I definitely thought like the women that were acting in this film, they're pretty interesting. The characters, and it's funny how they really like necessarily defined like who this group is, or like why they were actually together. So I mean, I'm just assuming now, this is all assumption, and you could all tell me if I'm wrong here, that like Cheryl, the one who went out into the woods, she was kind of like the fifth wheel. Shelly was that guy's, Scotty's girlfriend, and then what was her name? Was it Linda? Linda was Ash's girlfriend. Now I'm not quite sure, but it was pretty funny because I couldn't tell like looking at the cabin what those sleeping arrangements were going to be, or like how, like it was always just like one person laying in a bed at a time, and I'm like, what are they going to do? Like, how's this going to work out? But I thought that was pretty weird. Was like the friend dynamic that went on this vacation.
Yeah, he was Ash's sister.
What? Wow.
Yeah, they mentioned it once. Maybe they mentioned it more than once. But I thought it was also interesting how it was two guys and three females, because usually it's the reverse. There's usually one like third wheel stoner guy who like you're like, why is he even here? But this was the opposite of that, which I thought was interesting take. Again, 1981, so all this was fresh, but we see so many movies where again it's the reverse. It's only like there's more men than women basically in these movies.
I didn't realize it was a sister until I saw till Ash Ash versus Evil Dead, to like the show, because I never picked up on it's like I feel like it is really very quickly mentioned that it's his sister, and then you'd be totally forgiven for misremembering Evil Dead 1 and 2, because the second one recaps the first movie. They basically do like a quick recap of the first movie, going into where it goes from there, and it's such a I like didn't understand it as a child, because I think I saw Evil Dead 2 first, and like I was always like, is this a reboot? Is this a sequel? And it's really just like a brand new movie that they just kind of like roll the first movie into a new story into.
Yeah, I always felt like it kind of was a reboot. I always felt, and I might be wrong on this, and I haven't seen Evil Dead 2 in a long time. I always felt that it was he got more money and he was like, okay, I need to make this movie the way I really wanted to make it. And I feel like the first half of it kind of is Evil Dead basically, and then it kind of when more characters come in, so it almost is like a remake. Like he remade his own movie a few years later, kind of. I mean, maybe it was completely meant to be standalone, but I kind of feel that it's the same movie, because again, why would he go back to the cabin? Like all the stuff happens with his girlfriend. It's just the two of them. So I kind of feel like he remade his own movie, so that it is easy to get confused by the two.
Oh, it absolutely is. So it is him going back to the cabin but with just his girlfriend in Evil Dead 2. So they're basically starting from scratch and telling that story in the first like 20-25 minutes or something of the first movie before new people come in, and you see where the story goes from there. So yeah, I was always confused as a child, as a kid.
I think you have like 20-25 minutes where again it is just him in the original, I mean sorry, in Evil Dead 2, where he's just getting the shit kicked out of him for like a half hour, which is kind of the end of Evil Dead 1 in a way. So yeah, maybe it is like he basically took it from the halfway point and kind of moved on and just kind of went in a different direction.
I feel like they should vacation at like a different place. It's like, is this the only place like to like go? I was super disappointed, and I got very excited at one moment when I was watching the original. when he goes into the tool shed and he grabs the chainsaw, I was 100% expecting him to use that chainsaw, and he doesn't. And I was like, what the hell? What a letdown that was.
I know you can't show me a chainsaw and then not use it. It's like it's like when they tease nudity and you don't get it. It's like, why'd you even do that? Don't show it to me. Like, don't tease me like that.
And in subsequent movies in the franchise have certainly made up for that, I think, definitely.
Yeah, and in the second one, yeah, they go over the top with the chain, right? Doesn't he gets the chainsaw attached to his arm at some point, right? And it's yeah,
Yep.
so yeah, they make it a big thing. So, but you're right. In this movie, they should have used the chainsaw. They absolutely. One thing I did read too is there the scene where he has the chainsaw and he's going to dismember his girlfriend, but he doesn't, right? It was actually a real chainsaw, and if you look closely, the actress is absolutely terrified that the chainsaw is so close to her. That these I heard also they used real bullets in the shotgun for some of the scenes, and he's actually shooting at dummies or shooting at other things, which to me is terrifying that they actually fired real
That's
bullets
dangerous.
on a set. Yeah, I mean, someone
Wow.
could have got killed. As safe as you are, that just seems wrong, but this is what I read anyway. Who knows? IMDb, right? Take everything with a grain of salt. It could be legend.
Yeah,
But
it's
that's what they
non-union
said.
sets, right?
That's true, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, that's when it gets over the line. Like when you're actually using real bullets. Even again, as safe as you're going to be, like that's got to be far away. But no one got killed. So one other thing I just wanted to say, like this one part of the movie, and I know it's not comedic like the other ones, but there was some really funny shit. And there's one thing that cracked me up that I actually rewinded it because I thought it was funny. Scotty, the other, not Bruce Campbell, the other character, goes out into the woods, comes back like all fucked up. Like he's just a mess. Like he's got bones poking out. He's just disgusting. He got the shit kicked out of him. And Ash is like, what does he say? He's like, "Oh, you'll be fine. Like you'll be fine. Don't worry." Like meanwhile, this guy's literally bones sticking out of him. No, you're good. You're fine.
He's like, we're
Definitely
gonna
some
get out of
stuff,
here,
yeah.
all of us.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
All of us?
Meanwhile, the bridge was like, there's no bridge. There's no way to leave.
Yeah,
So,
there's no bridge. Like you just murdered like demons that everybody turned into. This guy's got bones poking out. He's all fucked up. Like, yeah, we're all gonna get out of here. Sure, love it.
One of my favorite pieces of imagery in that movie is when they go back to the bridge and she's like, they're not going to let us leave. They're not going to let us leave. She already thinks that that's going to be the case. And they get to the bridge and you see that it's unusable and it's like been ripped up and kind of facing, part of it's like now bent and facing towards the land. And it's the way the steel beams are arranged is like it's been bent into almost like a claw. And I thought that was such a cool, like such a small, like little thing, but it's such a cool piece of like this demonic claw that the bridge has been made into. I always thought that really stuck out to me as like a nice choice in terms of how you would take out the bridge and keep them stranded. It's a nice artistic choice.
So, like, even if that didn't happen to the bridge, would you even drive across that ever again? On the way in, like the boards were falling off, the car like almost falls through. Like, I would have just, I don't know, hired a helicopter or something. I don't know how you would get out. I mean, they had no cell phones, right? So, what are you going to do? But I don't even know if I would have tested that bridge at all. Like, I don't know
man, I
what I
would have
would have
walked
done.
across it.
Yeah,
I would do
swam.
that. I mean, I would do something,
Like, I'll take my chances with the demons over falling off a bridge into a body of water. I think I could survive better with the demons.
I like that imagery that you brought up, Anthony, because that got me thinking about the way the Necronomicon looked in Evil Dead Rise. It kind of looked like a claw was holding the book closed,
Mhm.
and it didn't open until it received some blood. So I was kind of thinking, man, I just feel like a lot of these people are looking back at that nostalgia and trying to grab those little bit of key moments and like those key visuals and bringing them into like these more modern films, because that's totally what I thought of, because I literally watched Evil Dead Rise right after I watched the original Evil Dead last week, and I was like, wow, it just feel like it's the same imagery. So I thought that was super cool.
Oh yeah, they did a really good. I think subsequent directors have done a really good job of kind of like capturing like these little pieces of these nods or these pieces of imagery, and one of my other favorite things about this franchise is how different how it all feels cohesive as a movie franchise, even though the tone is so different from movie to movie, where, you know, you have the original, which is very much a serious kind of horror movie. Then the second one introduces some comedy and some slapstick because they were big, you know, Three Stooges fans. And you get that kind of, yeah, slapstick goes through the comedy that extends into Army of Darkness. And then you get this Fede Alvarez remake in Evil Dead that is really goes back to like this being very a serious horror centric movie, and then you get the Evil Dead Rise, which stays in that kind of realm, adds a little levity to it, but it also adds a ton of cruelty to it. It's like it's really mean, but it's really effective, and I enjoy. I know some people didn't like it, but I really liked it. I saw it in theaters, and I was like, yes, they're doing this right.
Yeah, same. And you know, I usually, like most people, don't like a ton of remakes. I love the Evil Dead remake. I love Evil Dead Rise, and I think what makes me love them so much is I do feel that the directors or filmmakers in those movies were fans of the film, and you could kind of tell that they were not trying to be like, I'm going to do my complete own thing and not care about the original source material. I think they're like, how do I take the original source material, add my vision, my spin to it, still make something that is very relatable to those films, which I think, again, like you said, like the remake is a throwback to that original where it's like brutal and raw and bloody. And I think Evil Dead Rise has a little bit of that. It's not as serious. It's super dark, but it also is tongue in cheek in a lot of ways, where it's entertaining in a different way, and I really appreciate that. And I hope they make another one. I hope they do more.
I think there are plans to, and I'm very excited. It's been like, again, for me personally, definitely one of my favorite franchises and one of my favorite most consistent horror franchises, because they're not, as we know, they're not all consistent.
Yeah, very, very true. So, okay, so before we move on to like the next movie, let's get into our drinking game and rating this movie. So let's start with, I'm gonna give my Bloody Knives and Jerry's gonna drink, and then we'll give him a pause while oh, I got the J and B. So I am going to give this, I'm gonna give it a, I thought a lot about this. I go back and forth, but I'm gonna give it a 4. I think I love this movie. It's great. I think, you know, there are things about it that, you know, I could maybe do it out, but I think it's an awesome movie. You know, it might even be higher than a 4, but I'm going to give it a 4 for this purpose.
Wow, thanks a lot for that. So
I was going to say 5, man. So be happy that I knocked it down a little bit.
You know, since I have no ice or anything left here, I'm just going to do the thing Max style, and I'm just going to go 4.
Woo! Right out the bottle. Damn, for those of you who aren't listening, Jerry has that J&B bottle lifted very high as a very long 4-second sip. All right, so hit us with it. What's your rating? And Anthony and I are going to drink to this.
So if you asked me 2 weeks ago what I would have given this movie, I probably would have given it a 2. And that is really based off of probably how I feel for Evil Dead 2. And I might still kind of stick with that. This was a different movie. I liked it a lot. 3.
Okay. All right. I could do that. All right. Anthony, you
Cheers,
and I
guys.
for 3 seconds.
Yeah. Guzzle.
I have to get another out of the fridge. Do I have a second to do that?
Yeah.
You do. Yeah.
He already drank his beer. All right. Here we go.
So yeah, so like Rich, you were busy interviewing him, and I only had one question for him, and that was if he had a gallon of liquor in front of him. That's the only question I wanted to ask.
I know, I was watching him drink it. I was watching him drink it. I was like, you realize that like you're gonna be drinking a lot more, so slow down, pace yourself. All right, Anthony's got a fresh beer. Oh, he's cracking it open. All right, cheers. 3 seconds.
All right, 3 seconds, guys. Cheers. Enjoy it.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, normally I'd feel good right now after having that 3-second shot, but unfortunately now Anthony's going to give his score, and Jerry and I are going to have to pay the consequences. So, Anthony, 0 to 5 Bloody Knives, and you could go halves. You could do 4.5, 3.5, whatever.
I was debating between 4.5 and 4, and I'm going to go easy on y'all and just do a 4. So I'm a 4 out of 5.
I appreciate it. All right, 4. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, now the room is starting to spin. Here we go. All right, it's Tuesday, right? Tuesday night. All right, so let's
I have a
let's
meeting
move.
tomorrow.
I did.
My boss knows that I do this podcast, and I pray to God she's not listening. So she's gonna be like, "Yeah, I listened to your podcast, and Wednesday you were really not yourself."
Yeah, and Anthony, what you don't know is Jerry is in New York, so for him it's 9 o'clock at night now. So it's getting late in the night to be drinking so heavily when you have to get up early. But with that in mind, let's move on to The Thing. This is the John Carpenter, I believe it was 1982. What a lot of people may not know, maybe most of you know, is this actually is a remake of a 1950s movie, A Thing from Another World, I believe is the name of that movie. However, this is its own thing. I had seen that movie. It's black and white. I don't remember it very well, but this is John Carpenter's The Thing. So, Anthony, why don't you walk us through the plot of The Thing?
Absolutely. And I will say it's also based off the an earlier 1900s novella called "Who Goes There," I believe.
Okay, I
So
did
yeah,
actually not know
based
that.
off based off the book.
Have you read the book, or you just know
I
about it?
haven't, but it's on my list. I do want to read the
Yeah,
original.
now I
The
want to check
original
that
book.
out.
So basically, The Thing is about a team of 12 people in the Arctic on a kind of research expedition where they're kind of stationed there, and very isolated, very in the middle of the Arctic, a lot of snowstorms, and there's another team from another country, from Norway, that is near them. And in the beginning of the movie, they come outside of their research station, and they see a helicopter, the Norwegian helicopter, coming out and shooting at a dog. And the guy gets out and drops a grenade. The helicopter explodes, and he's still shooting at the dog. They don't understand what he's saying because they don't speak the language. So he's just shooting at the dog, and they think that he's also shooting at them. So they kill him. They don't know what's going on, and they bring the dog in. They're trying to figure out what's happened. So the dog goes in, and they come back out, and they're like, we got to go find out what happened at their station to see, if they went stir crazy, if there's any survivors. And they go, and they find like most of the station kind of a lot of blown up, and they find these like really gnarly remains that look sort of human, but also mutated and not human, like multiple faces, multiple limbs kind of everywhere, and kind of burned up in the snow, and some dead bodies. And they find these tapes that show that they discovered an alien spacecraft buried deep beneath the snow. And so they kind of excavate it, and in the snow as well, they see a block of ice that's been excavated from the snow, and they surmise that something came out of, the ship crashed, and something crawled or left the ship and froze in the ice about 10,000 years ago. From there, they start to realize that the dead organism that they brought back with them is a life form that can imitate other life forms and imitate them perfectly. It kind of assimilates them and makes a copy. And they realize that any one of them could have been infected by this alien virus that it kind of assimilates the person. And yeah, from there there's the whole movie is based on this idea of paranoia and not knowing who to trust and not knowing who's actually human and who is a copy. There's this whole rabbit hole where you can go down, where you try to figure, because it ends with two remaining characters, and you don't know if one of them is still human or not. Yeah, you can go down this entire rabbit hole, which I did, and I spent like several hours on Reddit trying to figure out, like, if they're who's actually a real person at the end of the movie. And there's all these like little things that they put in, it's infinitely rewatchable, and you can find all these like small things that let you know who's telling the truth and who's not in a particular scene. That's a really long recap, but that's like the gist of it.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I always wondered too at the very end when it's just Kurt Russell and another character, whether or not they were both human or alien. And in going down that rabbit hole, I've seen John Carpenter say that not Kurt Russell, the other character is in fact an alien, and then I've seen interviews where he says he's not. So who knows? But yeah, I think what's interesting is that you said virus, that it's some kind of organism virus. And I'm glad you said that, because when I'm watching the movie and I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking, what is this alien's purpose? Like, it assimilates with a being and then ultimately just destroys that being and moves on to the next. And I didn't really get what the point of it was. Like, is it just trying to survive? Is it just trying to destroy all life? But if it's actually is some kind of virus type organism, then that makes complete sense, because that's its job, right? To replicate and destroy. So I never really thought of it that way. So that's really interesting, because that was always something that bothered me a little bit about this, was I didn't really get what the purpose of this alien was. I would think it would just kind of, find a life form, be that life form, and then just kind of coast, just not fuck with anything, just kind of exist. But that makes sense. I think one thing about this movie too, it's a cult classic. A lot of people think this is one of the best horror movies, or best sci-fi horror movies of all time. But at the time, it actually almost derailed John Carpenter's career. It was his first studio movie that he did. It bombed at the box office. A lot of people hated it.
Wow.
They hated it, and they thought that and it's funny because it came out the same day as Blade Runner, which I think also didn't do very well either. Which now again is a cult classic, and Blade Runner is one of my favorite movies. And I think people didn't like the practical effects. They didn't like the gore. They thought it was too much. Even the cast wasn't a fan of the film. And now looking back years later, it's a beloved work of art, basically, and something you don't see a lot of.
Absolutely. It also opened up against E.T. as well. So people had this which is an incredible movie in its own right, but also an alien movie. People had this, they're seeing this very different alien movie, right? At the same time. So I think but yeah, to your point, it was reviewed terribly. And now it's considered one of the best horror movies or sci-fi horror movies of all time.
Yeah, so wild. And even one thing you get right away from the beginning of this movie is the incredible score. And I'm going to butcher his name, Ennio Morricone, I think is how you pronounce it. The score I think is amazing and really pulls you into the movie. And he ended up getting nominated for a Razzie for this score. And apparently he took things he didn't use that he created for The Thing and used it in Hateful Eight, and that he got nominated for the Oscar. So it's it's just the same fucking music basically that people hated in 1982, and now it's genius. So I love the score.
I just got to say really quick, I totally agree with you. I love the score for this movie. It's so dread inducing, and it's got that really boom, boom, that pounding kind of thing. And really fucking funny that it's used in Hateful Eight, which is this, great Tarantino film that also has Kurt Russell in it. Kurt Russell is the lead in the thing as well, and is also about kind of is also a paranoia kind of who's telling the truth kind of style movie. So it was really funny that that's used, that kind of goes into that other film and with a similar kind of thematic thing going on. And I will also say lastly, I saw Killers of the Flower Moon, the new Scorsese movie with DiCaprio and De Niro, and it has a similar motif in it that at least to me, instantly recognized as that score from The Thing. So not the same score, but a very similar kind of vibe in that in the score for that film. So just throwing that out there.
I haven't seen Killers of the Flower Moon yet. I don't know if I could sit through a 3.5 hour movie. I'm sure. I think it's one I'm going to watch it on a plane, and that's when I watched his last one, Irishman. I tried to watch it at home, I couldn't, and finally I had a 6-hour flight, and I was like, okay, now's the time for me to watch this movie.
It's long, but it's good, but it's very long.
So this might be the only time this ever happens, on this podcast. I actually have the same exact notes as the both of you, and my note basically says a lot of things were done right in this film, and it's basically the setting, the atmosphere, the score, the pacing, and the tension. And that's very strange that we'd all kind of feel that same way about the music in this film from 1982, because it's just it's really in the background, but it's there when you need it, and it just creates tension, and you're ooh, what's gonna happen now? And for me, I haven't seen this film in quite some time, so I don't really remember it that well. But watching this almost back to back to Evil Dead, and just seeing kind of how an early 80s film holds up, I mean, I think this film was shot, it was gorgeous. I mean, it was just the coloring and everything. It was so sharp still, today, and crystal clear, and just to kind of capture like that isolation and like that extreme cold, like you felt it. And I really couldn't believe that I was feeling that from like a 82 film. It's was way beyond its time. It was incredible. I'm still kind of shocked that we all kind of felt the same way seeing it. So
And one thing about this movie is like the jumps, and I'd seen this movie before, but I haven't seen it in a while either. The jump scares got me. Where the scene, Anthony, where you're talking about where they're testing the blood, and for those of you who haven't seen the movie, they're trying to determine who may be the alien and who is not. So Kurt Russell and another guy tie everybody up, and they take a sample of each of their blood, and then they put like a really hot needle in the blood because they're expecting the blood to react if it's alien blood. And when they finally like find somebody who is the alien and the blood reacts, I jumped. I was like, holy shit. Like, and I remembered the scene, like I knew it was going to happen, and it got me. And there are a few jump scares in this movie that did still get me, which again, I might have forgotten these scenes, but I'm still like aware of the movie. And I thought it was a really effective use of that. And I'm not usually a huge fan of jump scares. It usually doesn't work on me, but I felt, and again, it could have been the score, like it really helped it. It could have been just the dread and the tension that was created through you've like you both said, you feel the isolation in this place and you feel they have nowhere to go. They're fucking stuck here and they just have to deal with this situation. And you do get in that where you're trapped there with them kind of feeling. So I think those kind of things really got me.
100%. And this is one of those movies that is a pop culture movie. It is referenced repeatedly in different things. Like there's a South Park episode on
Really?
it that goes, is that where they do, there's like a whole, where they're trying to figure out who has like head lice or something. And Cartman does this entire scene. He does the whole blood test scene,
That's funny.
dressed up as McCready. It's so fucking funny. And even there's this iconic scene, there's to me a very iconic scene in the film where one of my favorite scenes where he's goes to resuscitate the guy and he has the paddles.
Yes,
and he goes to put him in his chest, and the chest opens up. Brilliant practical effects for 1980s. This film is a fucking masterpiece to me. John Carpenter is fucking genius. Like his hands go into the thing and he rips his arms off, and it is what it is for practical effects at the time, but I think it still holds up. And there's the scene afterwards where the head of the alien separates itself and it falls over and it's grows these spider legs and these like eye things pop out and they're just like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. It kind of like skitters across the room while they're just like, you serious? And in the remake of Stephen King's It that came out recently, in It Chapter 2, they do a very similar scene with that where a head is decapitated by itself and of one of the kids in the movie, and it grows like these very spider legs, and one of the characters is like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Like it's like these very deliberate nods to that film, even 40 or 30 years or 40 years later. So yeah, so fucking iconic.
Yeah, I think you appreciate the practical effects too, seeing so many things with CGI. And again, you could look at the practical effects and you might say, oh, this looks fake, it's too much, blah, blah, blah. But so much better than if it was a newer movie and they did CGI. And I think too, what's interesting is I believe the special effects artist was pretty new. They were going to hire Rick Baker and they were going to hire another person, but they couldn't afford them. And this guy came in really cheap. And like, it might've been his first like big feature doing effects. So I give them credit. They did a great job. Some of it's gnarly as hell. And then that scene you're talking about like made me jump with the defibrillator and like the guy's bones like snap and it's just so gross.
Yeah. It's so gnarly. It's truly, of all the movies I've seen, I think it has the best practical horror and gore effects that I've ever seen in a horror movie. Like hands down. To me, I obviously you can tell I really like this movie, but like it is just, I can't get over how fucking good it is all these years later. And I remember the first time I saw it too. I don't know if you guys remember the very first time you saw it, but I remember making my dad watch it, like a VHS copy of it that I still have, and in like 2004 or something. And it was the very first time I saw it, and I just remembered, watching with my dad and just being like, you got to see this. I haven't seen it yet, but it's supposed to be fucking amazing. So,
Oh, that's super cool. I actually saw the original Thing from Another World with my dad, but and that was fun because my dad loves those 1950s black and white horror movies. I can't remember like the first time seeing this movie. I think I did see this movie when I was a bit older. I don't think it was one that I naturally went towards. I think I was a lot younger. I was going towards the slasher kind of movies, and I saw this one. I don't think I could have appreciated a movie like this, but so I don't really remember that. And I think I've only seen it a handful of times, and I don't know why I don't watch it more. Like I'm not sure what it is because every time I watch it, I enjoy it, but it's not like a go-to of mine where I'm like, oh, I want to watch the thing. I'm always kind of like, I don't really know. And then I watch it and I love it. So I don't know what it is. I think one thing that's interesting about this movie too is that there's no females in the cast, which is really, I can't think of another movie that's like that. And I did read that there originally was supposed to be one female character, but she got pregnant and they replaced her with a male. But one thing I do think that's, to me, not having a female character and maybe it's not necessarily a female. One problem I have with this movie is I have a hard time knowing who's who. A lot of the guys, at least to me, are kind of indistinguishable from another. Like some of them, okay, I get like that's McCready, that's Kurt Russell, he's got the beard and blah blah blah. But a lot of the characters kind of blend to me, and when they say their names, I just don't pick up. Like, oh, where's Windows? I don't know where Windows is, and I'm like, who's Windows? Like, which guy was that? And maybe I'm not paying attention enough early on. Maybe it's just not clear to me. And I think there is a version of the film where you do get to know the characters a little better. Apparently, this movie, I think they shot it over like 50 days. There's a ton of footage that got cut. I think they filmed multiple endings. So there's a lot of stuff, like backstory stuff that didn't make it into the movie that might make it more clear. It also probably would have been way too long. But I do have a hard time distinguishing the characters because they're all very similar to me. I don't get their personalities as much. And that's kind of, if I just pick one thing about this movie that I don't like, it's that I don't know who's who. And I think in a movie like this where it's very psychological and it's about these people kind of pitted against each other, I think it's important to kind of understand a little bit more about who they are. But that's, again, this is me nitpicking. I know it's a masterpiece. I would like it better if I could identify with more of the characters.
Well, I know who Wilford Brimley was, right? The diabetes guy. Yeah. I mean, Blair. And I thought he was like a super interesting character, strange guy. They lock him up because they're suspecting him of being the alien.
Sorry, they lock him up because they think he's fucking crazy.
Oh yeah, he went nuts. Yeah, that was
he realizes what's going on, and he's like, no one can leave because otherwise it will take over the world in like 2 years.
Yeah, and he fucks up all their equipment, right? He break their comms.
He fucks up their equipment, yeah. But my question is, wasn't he building a UFO himself, or am I imagining that? What was being built underneath that office that he was locked in? Because there was like a day that went by, and I would say there was 75% of a UFO built. What was that? Can someone clarify?
Yeah, Anthony, I hope you could answer that question because I didn't get it either. Because how did he build all of that? Again, if he even was infected by the alien, which I don't think they explain that he was, unless I missed it. But yeah, what was up with that? Like, how did he build this spaceship, or was it just already there? I didn't get that, and that confused me.
No, I got this. Listen, I've spent like the last 2 days on Reddit. I am prepared to answer all of your questions.
Thank God.
I'm here. I am here for you. So listen, there's a lot of like very intentional ambiguity in this film. And Rich, to your point earlier, I definitely get the thing about the characters, and I do feel that, and that's a good critique. And I only know the characters because I've watched this movie like 20 times. So like now I'm like intimately familiar with who they are, but I get that on first watch that you'd be like, wait, who is that person? Because there's like 12 people to like keep track of. But the thing with Blair, so he realizes what's going on, and he starts destroying the equipment and making sure that, and destroying the helicopter, because he's like, no one can leave, because he runs this computer simulation that where he realizes that if it gets out of this station, it will infect every organism on the planet within like 3 years or something like that. So they lock him up in one of the cabins outside of the station, and at some point in the course of the movie, so one of the things gets to him, and it's not clear, and it never is explicitly shown in the movie that this happens. You're kind of left to assume that happens, and you're also not even clear that how the transmission occurs, because we know that the thing can do this process like when it's alone with another person, and it kind of like these tentacles can kind of come out, and it like consumes the other person and copies them. However, there's also the idea that's mentioned in the film that a single particle from the thing can infect a person, and it can start. So you don't know if it can like infect a person and then slowly take over the cells in their body until all of a sudden they become one. They become one of the things. So that is completely left ambiguous. So if like someone has like a drink or something and they share the drink, you don't know if that can infect the person, and you don't know how long. If that is even a thing, and how long that process could take. So either that happened with Blair, where he was like infected and it slowly took over him, or one of the things went to the cabin and assimilated him, and Blair became one of the things. And so the Blair thing tunnels underneath the cabin and starts building a spaceship to leave, presumably to leave. Because it either wants to be frozen so it can assimilate. They think it wants to be frozen because it can withstand freezing, so that it can be found and take over more people and assimilate with more people, or it just wants to leave because it's really in survival mode most of this movie, and it's trying to like blend in so it can survive. That's the best answer that I can come up with, and there's a lot of intentional ambiguity in the movie.
So since you're an expert on the thing and you've done your research, I have a really important question. It's something I've been thinking about ever since I watched this movie that I need to know the answer to. So there's a scene where they're having like an intense talk, and I believe the cook comes in with a pair of dirty drawers and throws them down. It says, "Who threw their dirty drawers in the kitchen trash?" So whose shitty underwear were those? And that's really all I care about. Like, who shit their pants in the fucking trash? Tell me, like, what'd you find out on Reddit?
So there's a lot. So I didn't.
You have an answer.
Dive into the shitty drawers, but
top question.
Yeah, exactly. There's also a lot of misdirection in the film, because you don't know if basically from that, when they get that, they surmise that it rips your clothing when it assimilates with you. And so basically it's the idea that the thing assimilated with a person, and it ripped the clothing, and then it threw them in the trash, or it did that and it removed like the name tag on it. And I think that happened in that scene. They didn't know whose they were. But there's also a scene where one of the characters finds Kurt Russell McGreedy. They find his clothes in the snow ripped, and his name is still on it. So we don't know if the alien did that to sow doubt and make people think that McCready was one of the things, or there's another theory that McCready became one of the things at one point. But we do see him test his blood in the blood test scene, so it's likely that it's not him. But we also never see him draw his blood. However, I think the people that were there that were tied up, I think if they saw him not draw his blood, they would have protested. So it's, again, a lot of intentional ambiguity in who is the thing, and then if the thing is sowing confusion intentionally or not. So that's my answer to that.
So you don't know who shit their pants, is what you're saying.
I don't know who shit their pants.
All right, we'll never know, I guess.
Yeah,
maybe one day we'll have John Carpenter on, and we'll ask him. Windows? Did you say Windows?
He was a punk, man. He got swallowed by an alien. So I'm gonna say the dirty drawers were his, and if they found some porno, that was probably you. So that's it. That's all.
Accurate. I know. It's funny how you don't see any porno, right? There's like 12 guys in an Antarctic ice station, and no one's got a Playboy or a penthouse or anything like that. But
not that we see.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe there was a lot of J&B though, and that's good. All right, so before we kind of rate this movie, earlier Jerry teased some kind of challenge I'm kind of terrified for.
Yeah. So I have a little John Carpenter director challenge here, and what I'm going to do is we're going to do 2 rounds, and I will drink along with one of you. That way I'm included. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to name the John Carpenter film. You can give it a thumbs up and a thumbs down. If you give it a thumbs down, we're going to drink. Okay. If you don't know the movie, we're going to drink.
Oh, I don't think I know a lot of his movies.
And it's not going to be every single John Carpenter film. It's going to be mostly horror based. Okay. So we'll try to keep it within the horror kind of genre. Hopefully Anthony has a full beer there.
I'm gonna have to get another one.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I'm going to say there probably are about 10.
I've probably seen 3 of them, so fuck.
Well, then you know what that means. And
I hate you. We still got another movie to talk about.
Yeah, I know. So I'm gonna drink along for this one, and then we'll do Anthony next, and then you drink along for him.
Okay, so wait, just to recap, are we each giving a thumbs up, or are we doing one at a time? Like, how is this working?
No. I'm gonna do you first, and then we're gonna do Anthony second. So I'm gonna drink to your answers, and then you're gonna drink to Anthony's answers. Okay.
Okay. So if I don't like it, it's a drink. It's a thumbs down. It's a drink. If I've never seen it, it's a drink. All right, fuck it.
It's a drink. Yeah. So
I don't care if I live or die.
So me and Anthony are drinking to you, and you're going to drink to Anthony. Okay, are you ready? And these are in chronological order, I believe. So
I am, but I don't know. I told Anthony we were going to drink a little bit. I don't think this is what he expected. So, all right, fuck it, let's do it.
If he listens to the podcast, that's it, you know.
All right, ready? Let's do it.
Are you ready? All
yes.
right, so Anthony, don't forget, we are drinking to every thumbs down or has not seen.
Okay.
So here we go. It's going to be quick. Ready? Halloween.
Thumbs up.
The Fog.
Thumbs down.
The Thing.
Thumbs up.
Christine.
Thumbs up. I love that movie. Guilty pleasure.
Okay. Prince of Darkness.
Never saw. You guys got a drink. Did he not do Halloween 2? Or is that
different director?
Okay, didn't know that.
They Live.
Thumbs up.
All right, so this is a short. Body Bags.
I don't remember it, so I'm gonna say I didn't see it. Saw it. I saw it in the theater. Don't remember it.
In the Mouth of Madness.
Never saw it. Or actually saw it. Don't remember it.
Village of the Damned.
Never saw.
Oh my God, dude! Come on.
Pick this. This is your idea.
We're supposed to watch this shit.
We didn't say we're doing a John Carpenter episode.
All right, vampires.
You know what to do. I never saw it.
God, all right.
All right, that's it.
That's it. I'm not gonna do Suburban Screams, even though that's his new show, and I
never even heard of it.
But I'm not gonna. Yeah.
All right, so now you're gonna ask Anthony, and you and I drink.
Now you're gonna ask Anthony. Okay. No. I just drank. No, you're drinking. You're
solo. You. All right.
Solo dolo on this one, dude.
I'm trusting Anthony to have seen and love all of these movies, so I'm not worried.
Pretty much have. So we're good.
All right. You know what? I'm gonna add 2 more to Anthony's. What do you think about that?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna add 2 more to his.
Fuck it.
All right, you ready, Anthony?
Yep.
All right, Halloween.
Thumbs up.
Okay. The Fog.
Haven't seen.
Okay.
Escape from New York.
Thumbs up.
Whew. Escape from LA.
I'm gonna say thumbs down.
Right. There's Bruce Campbell in it. Come on.
The thing.
Thumbs up.
All right. Christine.
Thumbs up.
Prince of Darkness.
I'm already drinking. He's gonna say thumbs down.
Thumbs down.
I saw the look in your face and I was like, yeah, it's gonna be good.
They Live.
Thumbs up.
Hell yeah.
I love that movie. Body Bags.
Didn't see.
Wow, you guys are missing such a great film. This is
a great
like
film.
That,
I'd right?
Watch it after this. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you about it in a second. Yeah, In the Mouth of Madness.
I'm gonna say thumbs up.
All right. Village of the Damned.
Didn't see.
Drink up.
Oh wait,
dude.
I almost forgot what I was supposed to do.
Yeah. And Vampires.
Thumbs up.
All right.
Okay, all right. Thank you. You did that as a favor. I know you didn't like that movie.
No, I did. I actually do. Okay. It's a guilty pleasure.
Okay.
So Body Bags, he does the first short, which is probably like a 20-minute film. It's called The Gas Station. I think this is a great film, and really the director of Open 24/7 pretty much got his entire idea for the film from watching this short, and it's really just like kind of like what takes place at like this gas station throughout the night, like all the crazy customers and people that you deal with. and one of them ends up being like a killer and is like stalking the gas station attendant. It's like a super cool film. The other two stories in that movie, they're okay, but I definitely say watch it just for the first one. I'd say check it out. I think it's good. I think it's on Tubi right now too.
All right, so thank you so much for that game. Now I am completely hammered and about to get even more hammered because now we have to actually rate this movie. And let's see. All right, I'm gonna ask. You know what? I'm gonna drink. I'll ask you, Jerry. Anthony and I are gonna drink. So Jerry, bloody knives for the thing.
Oh, it was awesome. 4.
Shit. Okay. All right, Anthony, you and I 4 seconds.
Sorry, it was awesome. It might be one of his best films. I'm gonna say it's better than Halloween. I'm saying it. I said it. So
Bold statement. All right. I'm going to give mine to allow Jerry to drink. I'm talking a little slow now, so I'm trying not to slur. I'm also going to give it a 4. I give it a 4. Again, it's a beautiful movie. It's close to perfect. There's just a few things about it. Again, I don't think it's ever going to be in my rotation. I'm talking as Jerry finishes this bourbon. You better re-pour because now we have to drink to Anthony, who I'm terrified as to what he's going to rate this.
Oh my God!
All right, what do you got, Anthony?
Don't do this at home, kids.
Oh, this is a 5 out of 5 for me.
Why did we invite him on? No, all right, let's do it. 5 seconds. You ready?
This is a 5.
This is a mess.
Wow.
And I'm opening beer number 3, and I am a lightweight. So.
All right, so we got one more movie to talk about. This is the one that I have the least amount of notes on. However, it is probably my favorite of the 3, and I'm a huge fan. I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of the franchise because I am not. I love Hellraiser 1 and I love Hellraiser 2. The rest of them, I think I've seen bits and pieces of some of them, but I don't think I don't really know the movies, to be honest with you. Like there's too many. I think there's been like 8 or 9 after Hellraiser 2. I thought the remake was okay. I thought it was a bit long. I thought it was too Gen Z, maybe. I did think the female Pinhead Cenobite was pretty awesome. I did not really care for the movie, and I rewatched it a second time. I'm like, did I not like it? Just because I thought it would be something different, and I'm like, yeah, I still really don't like it. It's not terrible. It's just not my kind of movie. So I am going to do my best to give the plot of Hellraiser for those of you who don't know. I don't know if I can explain this movie because it is a bit. I see Anthony.
Oh, before you give the plot, I was really interested to hear what your thoughts were on the remake, and so that was interesting to hear that you kind of like you watched it a couple of times and you're like, oh, it's still okay. Pretty much, my personal ranking is like Hellraiser 1, Hellraiser 2, and then the remake. For top 3, like 1 to 3, for 1 to best to worst. And I thought that's like out of the whole franchise, it's definitely leagues better than all of the other sequels. And I did actually really enjoy it. So I was interested to hear what your thoughts were. Jared, did you see the remake?
So no, and I don't want any spoilers here.
Okay, but I won't spoil it.
I hate these fucking movies, so I wouldn't watch it. And honestly, I literally just watched this film for this tonight. This is just a series that's not me. So you guys could say whatever you want about it. I'm probably never gonna watch it.
So why don't you take a nap and
don't at me, people. I just, I like a lot of horror films. I just don't like this one. But yeah, I have a lot of notes. I have a lot of things to say about it. It's just not one of my favorites. That's all.
So Anthony, I will agree with you, and I will say that the remake is better than the sequels that I've seen by far. It's well done. It's not that it's like a bad movie. It wasn't really interesting to me, and I don't know. I felt like I didn't feel like it was made for me. Like the type of horror fan that I am. I felt like it was made for a different, like a newer, younger horror fan. I do think though the Cenobites, the creatures in it, were really cool and dope and scary. I just kind of felt that again. I felt it was too long. I didn't think it needed to be 2 hours long or however long it is. I think it's close to 2 hours. It shouldn't have been. Like there's a lot of just stuff they could cut out and just stuff that I thought was kind of nonsensical. But it's not terrible. It's just I didn't like it. All right, so I am a fan of Hellraiser, and this is another one where I saw Hellraiser 2 before I saw Hellraiser 1. It was another one of those situations where someone rented it for me as a child, and I watched it, and it was like, oh, that's really cool. So Hellraiser, and again, I'm a little drunk right now. I'm going to try to explain it. there's this man, Frank, who's a bit of a just done it all, seen it all, a bit of a sick, kind of fucked up guy who's experienced all of the pleasures life has to offer. He buys this puzzle box in, I believe, South Africa or something like that, that will open up a doorway to hell, basically. And what ends up happening is he opens up the doorway, and these four, what they're called Cenobites, they're basically demons who are the caretakers of hell, will torture him for an eternity. But when he does the box, he doesn't know, is it going to be pleasure? Is it going to be pain? It's kind of a combination of both. So it's a very BDSM kind of influence kind of thing. So basically, Frank gets taken off into the other world. I forget the name, the man's name, but a husband and wife and daughter go to live in the house that Frank once lived in. I think it's a family house or something like that. The husband cuts his hand and bleeds, and the blood hitting the floor allows Frank to come back from the netherworld of hell into the real world. But in order for him to fully come back, he must have other people killed where he could kind of take their bodies in blood. And what we find out is he was actually fucking his brother's wife, who does all the killing for him. And so she seduces a bunch of men, kills them for him. He comes back into almost human form. The daughter kind of sees some weird shit going on, and she kind of accidentally contacts the Cenobites and leads them back to Frank to take him back to hell, basically. I probably didn't do a great job of describing it, but it is a weird kind of movie. But I'll be honest, I love the movie, and when I rewatch it, I realize there are definitely things I don't like about it. And the main thing I don't like about the movie, and again, I love this movie, is the Cenobites, including Pinhead, who is on the DVD cover and everybody knows who Pinhead is, are kind of barely in the movie. You don't even really see them until maybe the 45-minute mark. They don't even speak until an hour and 5 minutes into this 90-minute movie. So even though they are kind of the big thing around this movie, they have a very limited part. They probably have 10 minutes of screen time altogether, which is a bit of to me, a missed opportunity because they're so fucking cool. And every time I watch the movie, I like the movie, but I wish there was more Cenobites. And I imagine it's partly a budget issue why they couldn't do more with them, or maybe it was just artistic. But that's my main gripe, is I wish there was more Pinhead, because they're super cool, they're creepy, their makeup is dope, and yeah, that's my kind of take on the movie. But the movie's, it's brutal, it's vicious. Apparently they cut out a ton of violence and additional sex to get an R rating. So the original cut is a lot more extreme, but it's been lost to the world, unfortunately. But what is in the movie is pretty graphic and violent and bloody, and I love it.
Yes, totally.
Okay, we're done.
I mean, I had such a hard time with this kind of film.
Yeah, tell me what you don't like about it, because I can tell you what I like about it, but what don't you like?
Yeah, I think you covered it. I mean, I think as a kid, and just thinking about like the conversations I would have with like other kids talking about like monsters and villains and things like that, Pinhead would always come up. And to me, he was like probably terrifying and scary guy. He literally is in the movie for probably 5 minutes. He has like an English accent, and he wasn't really scary at all. He's just like this sexy kind of demon gatekeeper guy. And he's not necessarily into like being vicious. He's kind of like into like hurting you for pleasure. So I think that was probably lost on me as a kid, and rewatching it, I'm like, oh, that's what they're about. These guys are like sexy motherfuckers. Like these Cenobites,
Yes, yeah,
like they're trying to like make things happen. But there was definitely a lot of body horror in there, which I think is probably like the most brutal parts. Like any of like those like hooks and kind of what would you call that when you're hanging? What would that be called? Suspension. Like those scenes were just like, oh, like they make you like cringe, and that was brutal. But I mean, overall, I'm like, I don't even know if it's a horror film. Like, I'm going to be honest with you, and I know Anthony picked this, and he's going to definitely chime in with something here. But to me, I'm like, it's it's like a drama that has like some supernatural elements to it, and I didn't like the characters. I didn't like anyone, like the Julie, who was the wife. Like, why does everyone want to like bang this chick? Like, she looks like a court stenographer or like a realtor, and like there's literally droves of guys like coming back to the house with her. She's dragging them into this room that looks like a burnt dungeon that doesn't even have a bed in it. And it's like, I understand they want to get laid, but like at what end? If if I'm about to hook up, I'm at the bar, right? And some girl brings me home. She brings me to that room. No, I'm turning around, man. I'm getting out of there. So
I don't know.
I didn't
I've been
find.
brought to some shadier places with some shady women, perhaps, and unfortunately, I've kind of put myself in some risky situations for the yeah. But no, I agree with you.
So,
Look,
so what? I want to hear what you guys liked. That's what I want to hear. Maybe I'm missing like that key element that will take me from like a hater to a fan. So maybe I'm just missing it.
So I'll go first, Anthony. So number one, I will say that you're right. The Cenobites are not scary, and I don't think they're supposed to be. I think it is supposed to be more sexy and symbolic of humans' desires and needs. And I think even in the way they did their makeup, apparently like the female Cenobite, like her throat is kind of symbolic of like a vagina or just something like that. But I do think too, going to like what is sexy about this
There was
woman.
a female Cenobite.
Yeah, the other only okay. So here's the thing. So there's four Cenobites in the movie, right? And there are two that speak. One is Pinhead, and one is a female. Apparently, in the original script, all four of them spoke, but due to the makeup, two of them could not. So more of their dialogue went to Pinhead, who was supposed to be a smaller kind of role, and the female Cenobite.
Oh, the
I
ring, the one with the ring in his
Yes.
mouth, probably couldn't speak. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The
Yes, that makes sense.
Chatterer, no, the Chatterer and the heavy set one, Butterball, I think is what they call him, could not speak due to the makeup, but they were supposed to. And I think again, what makes what they ended up cutting out of the movie is there is a bit of S&M stuff between Frank and the wife character. So she's kind of offering something very different sexually that attracted these men, but unfortunately, I had to cut it out to get the R rating. What I like about the movie is I think it's completely unique, original, different. I haven't seen a movie again where it's well, I mean, I have seen it, but it's like the movie where the stars of the movie are the villains of the movie, which is something I like. Like you want to see the Cenobites more, and unfortunately, they're just not in the movie that much. I like the brutality of it. I like again just the idea of again this woman is killing to bring this person out of hell, and it's what is tough to get is how easily she's manipulated by this man, because she has a husband who I think their life is very vanilla, but she's very attracted to this dark BDSM side that this guy Frank offers. And I think this is something that I kind of explore in the last movie I did, the one that Anthony was in, We Are Wolves, about how someone can these other pleasures that are not normal can really influence a person's life and make them do some drastic things, apparently.
So is this like a master and servant kind of relationship? Is that what's going on between Frank and
Yeah,
Julie?
I think they do have kind of like a dom sub kind of dynamic, and again, because of the way his personality is in that very dominant persona, she easily gravitates towards that. And I think in her marriage, she's kind of the one who's a bit more in control because her husband's kind of like this dorky kind of loser kind of guy. Like even there's a scene where the movers are there, and the movers are kind of flirting with her, and she's like, "Would you like a beer?" And the husband's like, well, I guess I'll go get it. It's like this guy's like a pussy, and she needed somebody to like take charge and be aggressive and violent with her. And that's why she's willing to kind of go to these like extremes to experience that. So it's just a different kind of character that you don't see in a lot of movies. It's a different like kind of story that I find really fascinating. And again, I just love the idea of when you think about like what you think hell could be or heaven could be, and there's probably something that's in the middle. And that's kind of what this movie is. Like there's no heaven or hell. There's just this other world, and it's you're gonna experience all kinds of different shit. Some of it's gonna be bad, some of it's gonna be pleasurable.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, and I'm such a fan of this movie and basically the first two movies as well as the remake. But I think it's such a great double feature, Hellraiser 1 and 2. The rest of the sequels are very, questionable in terms of quality, but the first two are fantastic, and they have this really cool lore that they kind of build out where it's not like a Judeo-Christian kind of interpretation of heaven or hell. There, it's like you're just thinking of like they're from a different dimension, or you know what I mean, or different. That's how they kind of the Cenobites refer to themselves as like explorers of the nether, you know, all these other dimensions and they don't distinguish between pleasure or pain. And yeah, it's these characters like Frank who are like, oh, I've experienced everything and I need to experience more. And so they open this Pandora's box, if you will, that opens this doorway to allow the Cenobites to give these characters their own version of pleasure or pain, or how they see fit, which ends up being it seems to be more pain than anything else. Yeah, it's to your point about the title too. It was originally so it's the movie is based written directed by Clive Barker, based on his novella called The Hellbound Heart, and it was originally titled Sadomasochist from Beyond the Grave. And that wasn't playing well, and when they were having the meeting, and there was a girl that spoke up and that was part of the production that was just like, you could call it what one woman will do for a good fuck. So that was her suggestion, and they
That's
ended
funny.
up going with Hellraiser. But I really, I love this movie, and again, the first two movies so much. It was one movie that I didn't see till I was a lot older, and I mean, I've seen like brief here and there clips of it when I was younger, but it really the score. This is another one where the score
The score is
is
really good
super
in this
iconic.
one. I completely agree with that. I wrote down that note that this also has a really great score that pulls you in. Absolutely iconic.
100%. Yeah, when that movie starts and you hear that score come in, that's super iconic to me, and I really think sets the tone. And there's these the actor that played Julia, I believe it was Claire Higgins. I think she's fantastic as an actor in this movie. I think everyone's great, but I think she's like acting the hell out of it. There are these really subtle nuances that she's bringing to that character, especially where you see her trepidation about bringing men to give to Frank so that he can be whole again, and he can regain his skin because he comes back without flesh. Um, and there's this she's like trembling, and there's this you can get the trepidation that she feels, and she really brings that as an actress. And I really really loved her performance in this film. And what I only took a couple notes, but like there's a specific moment too, especially when she's walking into the house for one of the first times, and she's walking up the stairs, and there's this statue of Christ, and there's this the camera has a shot looking up at it from her point of view, and then a shot looking down at her, and she has this look on her face, and of this kind of like just this discomforting or discomfort look. And it was just an interesting shot that they included there, and I think it sets the vibe for her character in a way. And I just thought like that was interesting that they included that her reaction to seeing a Christian iconography. And there's the establishing shot of Kirsty walking one of the first times we see her, that she's walking under this bridge as the sun's setting, and I think it's also a gorgeous shot as you get a wide of her walking and the sun setting under the bridge, and then you kind of get the metallic kind of fixture of the bridge. I really think the director did a hell of a job, and the cinematographer did a great job with this film. It's just there's so many cool elements to it, and I love that it's not a kind of more simplistic Judeo-Christian kind of version of like what we interpret heaven or hell is, but something more extra dimensional and something more, not even maybe Lovecraftian, or you know what I mean? Like, to Rich's point, it's very unique. I've never seen another movie like this, or an ideal exploring kind of this. So yeah, I love this movie.
Yeah, I have a bunch of things based on a lot of things you just said there. One is you're talking about the various like shots of the movie and the cinematography of it. And I know a lot of it they're really limited because they actually did shoot in a real house versus a set. And I know that as being a director, when you shoot in a practical location, like there's only so much you can do. So it's really difficult to get like a lot of different things. And I think they were like doing a lot of vertical kind of shots just based on the space they were in, but it's very effective and it works. You mentioned the title, the original title, and the Hellbound Heart and all the other things. One note I had in Evil Dead that I forgot to mention was the original title was Book of the Dead, but the producers felt that if you put book in the title, people would think it was literary and they wouldn't watch it. So they changed it to Evil Dead, which I thought was pretty interesting. The other thing is about the actors in it. And one thing I read is, so I think you mentioned this too, Jerry. I mean, they filmed this movie in England, so a lot of the actors were British. They did overdub several actors, including Frank, so that's not even the same actor, to make it seem more American, so it would be more interesting to US audiences. So that's another kind of disconnect, is that a lot of the dialogue for certain characters is overdubbed. One really funny thing that I learned is, so Doug Bradley, who plays Pinhead, who basically that's what he's known for. It's his iconic character. And originally the character in the script, it's not Pinhead. It's like lead center. It's Priest, I think is his character's name. But the makeup artist called him Pinhead, and that just kind of stuck. But so they asked Doug Bradley, he could either play the lead Cenobite or he could play one of the movers who's in the movie for like 2 seconds. And Doug Bradley really thought about it and he wanted to play the mover because at least then people would see his face. And instead he just chose, you know what, I'll play the lead Cenobite, which again made his whole career. And he almost picked this basically an extra role just so you could see his face on camera. It's like, it's so interesting, these little decisions people make that change your entire life, right? He could have gone that way and been a nobody, and now he could be at any horror con in the whole world and everybody's going to love him. So I thought that was super cool.
I'm glad you said that because like one of my notes here is the sound was not good and it felt cheap and dubbed.
You're talking about the
And
dialogue?
now it's yeah, so
Yeah,
now it
it
kind of
was.
sounds like
Yeah.
that's actually something that they did, and it took me a while to get used to that. And I maybe as a kid when I saw this, I didn't realize like how low budget like this film actually was. So it took me a little while to get used to that because honestly, like watching it now on like a modern TV, like a lot of the effects, I don't think they came off for me either. You could see the plastic, you could see like the sheen and the fakeness of like whatever the body parts they were using. So I was like, I was trying to look past a lot of that. But yeah, so that does explain a lot, being that they actually dubbed in some dialogue. Because I was really confused. Like first 10 minutes, I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah, and the digital effects I think are terrible in the movie. Like there's, and that takes you out of it, especially towards the end. And that's because of budget. And they said that they just didn't have the budget. Again, I would have chosen to do something different than doing that. But there's like these weird animations towards the end that are absolutely awful. But again, they just ran out of money, and that's shit
It's like a
happens.
yellow squiggly line going across the
Yeah,
screen,
it's bad. It's
and
bad. Yeah.
and then it ends like with a big storm. And I feel like in the early '80s, they felt like they had to end every horror movie with some sort of storm where everyone like runs away, like Poltergeist, Amityville. They all have like a storm in this movie too. It's like, all right, like I don't get the connection. I don't know, like maybe it was like a cool thing that was new in films back then, but I'm like, why is there a thunderstorm at the end of like every horror film in the early '80s? It was a bit strange.
You know what's funny too is they cut a lot to not get an X rating and to get an R rating, but you do see a quick shot of Frank's dick. So I thought that was interesting that
What?
that's in the movie.
Where?
There's
When?
a flashback scene where he's getting out of bed after he fucked Claire Higgins, and you do see briefly, it's a little blurry, but you do see his limp cock, and I have to call out whenever you see a dick in a movie. It's not Kid Cudi. It's not Kid Cudi. It's not Kid Cudi and X. It's not that. It's
It's not.
it's
Damn.
pretty, it's kind of small, but again, he did just, he's probably just fucked and everything like that. But you do see a quick glimpse of Dick, which I thought was interesting. So they had to cut out additional hammer hits to the head, but you have a little bit of a cock. And they had to cut out a spanking scene apparently, but that was okay. So
What? I feel like a lot of this probably would have helped drive this film for me as a person who's a bit skeptical about it because, like, I don't know, like maybe it was like a cool thing that was new in films back then, but I'm like, why is there a ton of hammer hits to the head? Like, I don't get the connection. I don't know, like maybe it was like a cool thing that was new in films back then, but I'm like, why is there a ton of hammer hits to the head? like you guys seem like you did a lot of research and dove into like a lot of the layers of this film, and that's not every viewer. Sometimes you're going to watch a film at face value, and that's who I am sometimes as a film watcher. So I just watch this as like, face value, and it didn't hold up in a lot of those areas. Hearing these other things definitely adds some elements of interest to me, and I may have to rewatch this one and some of the other ones, and maybe I'll have a different opinion later on. But yeah, that's definitely interesting here.
I will say, the second movie is a direct sequel to the first, with the same kind of characters and continuation of that story, and it adds a whole new set of lore to it. And it's like a really, really good double feature, just because it feels like the same tone. That it's a if you ever seen a sequel that feels really, really consistent tonally, or more or less consistent tonally, that the sequel to this one does. It like ramps up a bunch of stuff, but it feels like the same movie. I think Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2 for me feels like that. I know that's a lot of people don't like that movie. I happen to love that movie,
Love that movie.
Love it.
but it feels
Love
like,
it.
because it is a direct sequel. Yeah, I love it. It is like a direct sequel. So it's like
Well,
the
you guys convinced me, and I'm definitely going to check out this second one. And a lot of like these layers probably fell flat for me because I wasn't savvy enough. Maybe as a kid when I was watching it, I didn't quite understand like all these different like religious connotations and sexual connotations that were going on. So maybe now as an adult, maybe I don't know, I'm pretty immature, but maybe now I'll understand them a little bit better, and I'll gonna give it a chance, and I will watch the remake as well. So I feel like I have a lot of homework to do with this film.
Yeah, so I'll get into the sequel too, just really quick. So the sequel does continue the mythology and kind of gives you a lot more context into what happens. I like the first one. I like the sequel even better, I think. However, I do still have the same complaint in that the Cenobites are also kind of not in it enough. There's like a whole bunch of other stuff happening, so it's not that they're needed per se, but I would have liked more. They're just so cool. Like Pinhead's fucking cool, and he's not in that movie enough either. And that's a big problem of mine. I know in the sequels are more like, I think the third one it's just Pinhead and it's mostly just him in the movie. But that movie's also kind of cheesy and not as good. But I do recommend again the second one. But again, if you don't like the first one, like you're probably not gonna like the second one. However, I do think the
yeah. I
second
was
one
just gonna say. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I do think the second one might make you like the first one better. However, if you don't like that movie, like it's very similar. It's a little more graphic and gross, and it's a little more violent too, and a little more like, I don't know if sexy is the right word, but it definitely, like Anthony said, it takes it to the next level. But if you're not a fan, and I think getting back to like your original question, what do you like about this movie? For me, again, it is the creativity. I can't think of another movie like this. I love it that he created a whole world again with these characters that you don't really have never seen before, and it's demons and angels, like they're kind of a little combo of both in a way that we again aren't necessarily trained to kind of think about. So I just like it for something completely fresh and different, and I don't think anything even has come close to doing something like this since then. So that's what I like about it. Something fresh and different. And even when I watch it now, I still think it's fresh and different. Like there's things I wish that were in it that are not, but that's just me being what I would like to see, not necessarily making it a better movie. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Hellraiser. But thinking back through it, like, and we're gonna get into the bloody knives in a bit, and it's to me, as much as I love this movie, and I think I love this movie more than Evil Dead or The Thing, just based on the number of times I've watched it. I'm probably gonna rate it very similar to those. Like they're all to me very great movies, just in a different way. Yeah, the only other thing I wrote that I thought was funny is like they're moving into this house and there are like rats and maggots everywhere, and they're already moving furniture in. And to me, it's like, wouldn't you like clean out the house, exterminate it,
Clean
paint it, maybe
off.
fix it a little bit, make it nicer? And they're like moving beds upstairs. Meanwhile, there's like a room full of maggots and shit. Like it is a little odd, but they're just trying to kind of give you some shock stuff.
I do really like the special effects, the practical effects in this film. The scene where Frank is reborn out of underneath the baseboards in the attic, is such a cool fucking practical effects scene. I think they really did a good fucking job. If you watch like Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy, there's a similar reanimation or rebirth scene of one of the demons in that movie that I feel like maybe was like, influenced by that. And in Hellraiser 2, one of the lead actors, one of the doctors in that movie was an actor that plays a Marine in Aliens. And in Hellraiser 4, it was one of Adam Scott's very first movies.
And I think I read that Lance Henriksen, who's well known in that kind of genre, who was in Aliens, right, he was originally considering the role of Pinhead, but turned it down because he didn't want to do sequels. And then I think he ended up doing a sequel. So he did. I think he was in one of them. I forget which one, but I thought that was funny. Yeah. So anyway, so to wrap this up, I will let Anthony go first, so Jerry and I can take our sips. What do you rate this one? How many bloody knives?
I'm gonna go 4.5.
Whoa!
Wow.
All right, let's do it. Cheers.
Cheers.
Mm.
Wow, clearly you're one of your favorites.
All right, I'm going to. Oh shit, this could go either way. I don't know. Fuck it, I'll drink again. Jerry, what do you got? You're probably not going to give it much, so I'm not worried.
I'm just going one, man. It's not for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. This is not my genre. This is not my thing. The last time I probably watched this film was probably 20 years ago. So, and I think the next time I watch it is if we do another podcast where I have to watch it. So,
all right,
I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it the same as I gave the other two movies.
What? Seriously?
Yeah, I'm giving it a 4. I love this movie. There are things I wish were better, but I still love it. I'm gonna watch this all the time. So 4 seconds. You're finishing. And
Empty.
Just because why not? He's got the beer.
Wow. Wow. This is super interesting, and I'm so happy we did this because honestly, these are 3 movies that I probably don't watch often or I haven't watched in a long time. So it's really cool to kind of go back and check out like some of the classics, but maybe not like the mainstream classics. So this was definitely educational for me to check these out because honestly, like I said, I didn't watch Evil Dead. The Thing, I probably haven't watched in 15, 20 years. Hellraiser, I probably haven't watched in 15, 20 years. So it was very cool to like kind of go back and check these out. Because a lot of times when I'm like looking for a movie and I spend hours looking for a movie, I lean towards something new. So this was great.
Yeah, I'm really glad I watched Evil Dead again because again, I had this impression that it was a movie I liked growing up, but was grown out of it. And I'm glad to rewatch it because I'm like, no, it's just as good as I remembered. I don't know why I stopped watching it. I think I just got tired of Bruce Campbell, to be honest with you, and I just had a hard time seeing him in anything after just seeing again Ash vs. Evil Dead and blah blah blah. And I think I just had a bad taste in my mouth. But no, I still love that movie. The Thing too is another one where it's not in my repertoire where I watch it, but every time I love it. So Anthony, thank you for suggesting these movies. So before we wrap up, 2 things really quick. Anthony, give your information again where people could find you and your music and everything you got going on.
Yeah, totally. You can find me music wise pretty much across the board at Jaws of You, and same on Spotify, all streaming services. You can look me up there if you're into like indie, alternative, pop punk, emo, all that stuff. That's kind of like where I'm at. Yeah, you can find me there.
Awesome. Check that out. And usually we drop episodes bi-weekly, but we're going to do a special episode a week from now. And the reason why we're doing that is because it's the 40th anniversary of Dawn of the Dead, and they are playing it theatrically. And I know Jerry is going to see it in theaters, right?
Yeah, it's Saturday. Actually,
Jerry's going to go see it on Saturday. So next week we're going to talk about Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead and some other Romero stuff. So look out for that. All right, cool. Thanks everybody for hanging. I am going to finish whatever I have left of this drink and then probably pass out. Thanks everybody and have a good night.
Yo, wait, before you finish up, first of all, I want to say very quickly, thank you for having me because I've been dying to be on a horror movie podcast where I can talk about this. And to anybody looking for like new horror movies, like go check out the new Alien Romulus trailer because that one looks fucking killer. So I'm really excited.
Okay.
Yeah, go watch the trailer for Alien Romulus.
How does that fit into the universe? Is that kind of is that Prometheus? Is that just
So it's in between Alien and Aliens, and it takes all films into consideration, and it's directed by Fede Alvarez, who did
who did Evil Dead? Okay,
Wow,
so
very cool, awesome.
yeah, I'm a huge fan of the original Alien. Aliens, I like a little bit. I actually really like Prometheus and whatever the Alien movie was after that. I think it's Alien
Covenant.
Covenant. I really like that too because I like the whole mythology of it. So I'm curious to check it out. Awesome. I didn't know that trailer dropped. Thank you. All right. Have a good night, everybody.